answers to a lot of popular questions in the community call question channel. So please review them. You can have them open during the call so you can see. The thought was that with these answers out before, we can sort of move through the questions quicker and do follow-up questions and have more time at the end, so we don't have to go through each one super detailed since it's already written out. But maybe so we have an agenda, so we should just go through each question like quickly.
Yep.
And catch any follow-up questions. So people, if you want to ask a question, raise your hand and we'll invite you to the stage.
Yeah, I think like also like all the rest of the questions will be answered as well over like the next few like days/week. So yeah, I mean we'll just like go through the questions that are like popular now, and yeah, just like can give any explanations required. And once done, we can just like open them just like start an open mic session, and I can answer any questions as they come up.
Yeah, great. Do we go?
Yep.
You want me to read the questions?
I mean, we could almost like read the question and the answer as well, and then if someone has like wants like more clarity, they can just like raise their hand, and I can just like give more clarity on those questions.
Yeah, so let me do the first question. Vijay was asking about host to host, why it took longer than expected, and how would that what would that mean for the layer 1 development of Ren? Like how long would that take? And there was also a question about Greycore, why we're deprecating that. So the answer to that first question, the host-to-host feature has been live since last year, at the end of last year. But why it hasn't been on the bridge is because we had to rewrite the whole Ren bridge. It uses now the new version of Ren.js, version 3, which is a complete sort of refactoring. It's much better now. We also then had to refactor the bridge. So this took quite a while and a lot of testing, and because we added a lot of new assets, new types of assets, it's simply just taken a longer time than expected to develop. With regards to Greycore, so it requires a trusted set of users to run the execution layer. And so over time, we don't think that this system or this design doesn't prioritize decentralization, and it's quite risky. And the benefit we would have gotten would be minimal. But we've sort of had the tech ready. So we're using this now to deploying the new Ren 2.0 chain, which will from day one be fully decentralized and open source and have proper incentives in place. So will we have like a post about this, or what's the how will we sort of deploy and sort of announce the new Ren 2.0 or the KSNet thing? Can hear you, sister.
Sorry, was that a question? I think you just like cut out there.
Yeah, so the question, like, how will we sort of post and sort of announce the new Ren 2.0 chain that will be this new fully decentralized network? How are we?
So we are actually currently working on like a white paper, and once like it is fully done, it would be made public so that people can understand like what we are doing with Ren 2.0 at like a clear technical level. So we'll also be like almost like before the end of the month, releasing like a blog post explaining like Ren 2.0 at like a high level on like what it is and what it is not trying to do. And yeah, so like you can expect like a blog post that explains like Ren 2.0 at a high level by the end of this month, and like a white paper in Q3.
Yep. So do we have any questions about this? Any quick questions from anyone in the community? So to ask a question, just raise your hand. Otherwise, then we can move on, I guess, to the next question by Sutashi Nukumata, who asked, what are the unique features of Ren Layer 1 that makes it worth the effort, especially since Varen, and not really Kellogg, Varen can run on an EVM chain just fine. So the answer to this is that with the Layer 1, we'll have we can have a highly decentralized sort of EVM chain by utilizing all the dark node operators who run dark nodes, but can then also spin up validator nodes on this EVM chain, who will receive fees for all of the activity on that chain. So it will be, a big incentive to spin up a validator on that chain. So the Ren Layer 1 can also differentiate itself since it can treat all of the sort of cross-chain assets as native assets. There's no longer like a Ren BTC token. It's like there's Bitcoin on this Ren chain and Zcash and Dogecoin and USDC when it's brought over from an EVM chain. So it creates a new sort of developer and user experience where you can just, you can directly deposit any asset into smart contracts on Ren, and there's no this mental blocker that you have to first bridge the assets, etc., and then you have to do this and that before you can sort of use an asset in an ecosystem. Those barriers are broken down. It's a better user experience, and it incentivizes, or it makes it more enticing for developers to deploy on this chain as well, because you know that it will be a nice experience for users. And so this Layer 1 can then power Varen X, for instance, if they want to deploy there, and it can power Catalog and any other applications deployed on Ren or want to deploy on Ren. So do we have any questions on that?
Yeah, I will just like extend on it a bit. So I mean, like to continue on it. So the idea, or like how you can actually imagine this like L1 would actually work is that right now, right, like people can actually deposit like funds like BTC into like Ren VM, and the only thing they can actually do is like mint it onto some other chain. So with like Ren L1, you can imagine such that like you can actually deposit funds into Ren, and you can just like use it inside Ren, like to do like interesting things like trading, or like just like lending, and like so a lot more like interesting things, like anything that you can actually do with DeFi. And like if from a developer point of view, it is like very clean and like very smooth, because all of these like tokens and assets that are inside like Ren are represented as ERC20s. So like anyone who actually built like a smart contract on Ethereum should be easily able to just like bring that smart contract to our system, or someone who has like Solidity experience should be able to like build a system where like they just like have to think about ERC20s, and like everything else is like taken care by the Ren system. And on top of it, like the other thing it actually adds a lot of value is that is with economies of scale. So right now, right, like if we want to like provide incentives or like provide liquidity like for like Ren BTC or something, we have to like provide liquidity on every single blockchain that it is on, and we can never like get really concentrated liquidity because since like we are like distributing all this liquidity on all these blockchains. So with Ren L1, people can actually build liquidity systems like Uniswap on or like Catalog on Ren that have like very deep liquidity, and this liquidity is not only usable inside Ren but also from Ethereum. So Ethereum, you could actually do trades across like Uniswap and Catalog on Ren L1, and that is like one of the features with like Catalog, where like we will only like have concentrated liquidity on Ren for like a small number of assets, and for all the assets that are already available on, let's say, something like Uniswap, you can just like use Uniswap liquidity in addition to like Catalog liquidity to do your trades. So that's one example, and like economies of scale is a very powerful concept, and it can be used with like lending and like a lot of other products as well. So yeah, that's the reason like Ren L1 is like very cool. Go on, Satoshi.
Thank you guys for answering my question. Just wanted a bit of clarification on the past. In the past thought I think you said that it would be likely that Catalog would launch on existing supported EVM chain.
Yep.
So what I don't understand is like, so if that's the case, all the features that we just talked about, I think they are already possible, like now, let's say on an existing chain. So, like, is there any features that are really exclusive to the Ren L1 chain?
Yeah, so the reason like we were thinking of like launching Catalog on a new chain is just because like if we are unable to almost like decide on, let's say, Ren L1 as like a good thing and like a good direction forward for Ren, we'll just like almost like limit the number of features like Catalog has, and we'll just like launch it on a different system and just use Ren Bridge and just like go ahead with it. But yeah, like you actually deploying Catalog on top of like Ren L1 has like inherent value because like it becomes like very easy and like very streamlined to actually do this cross-chain transactions through Ren compared to any other chain, because like Ren is built as like this cross-chain tech network. For example, like one of the features that we have been thinking about and is like very interesting with like Ren L1 is this concept called conditional transactions, where you can actually say that please only execute this transaction if this other transaction actually executes on top of Ethereum. So what this actually allows us to do would be like you can actually execute, let's say, a transaction only if like a Uniswap trade happens. Let's say if you want to go from ape to BTC or something, then you can only execute the ETH to BTC trade when like ape to ETH trade is successfully executed on the Ethereum blockchain. So with like a different EVM chain, we would not be able to do that. So if you want to create like the exact same experience, then there should be like a third party who's actually taking the risk of like arbitrage between these two trades. They should execute like the let's say ape to ETH trade on Ethereum blockchain, and just like and then come back and like execute like ETH to BTC on this other chain where like Catalog is deployed to. Like, but if we can actually build out like Ren L1, we can actually build features directly into the protocol itself that can actually decrease the amount of risk these like middle parties have to take, and we can actually build experiences that are like truly cross-chain and are like and cannot exist anywhere else, because no other protocol actually has protocol level just like cross-chain features such as like conditional transactions, for example.
Okay, thanks.
No worries.
Do we have any other questions on this? Yes, I'll invite you, Mag.
Hello. Hello,
Hey, Mag.
everyone. Hi,
Hey.
Sutro.
Hi.
Nice to see you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So on this question, I just want to understand whether have you received any demand from developers to have these features? I think one of the things with Ren is that we've seen that it's been pretty hard to get integrations to get Ren.js integrated on the the different apps. So I'm just wondering whether I feel that actually building on a new chain would probably require more involvement from these developers, and I just want to understand whether the demand for that product is like you have knowledge about whether this demand exists that justifies sort of all this development.
Yeah, so we actually have been talking to like a lot of people, and like whoever we actually talked to about this like Ren L1 system, and just like explaining these like concepts of like how these conditional transactions work and how people can actually build like this one application on one chain and can actually almost like integrate with like every other blockchain and just like let others let other dApps built on, let's say, other blockchains actually like interact with our dApps. I think like most of the people who we talked to like said that they would love to like integrate on like catalog as like Ren L1 as well. And there are also like a lot of projects that like some of our team members internally want to like build this concepts like lending aggregators and all these things that they want to almost like start working on and just like building once like Ren L1 is available. So there is like a decent amount of demand from like a developer side of things, because it just like simplifies a lot, because like if you are like building on Ren L1, you'd not have to build this like complex adapter contracts that actually adapt your like Ren gateways into your system. You just like almost treat everything as an ERC20 and just like and use them, and converting to ERC20 and all that is like taken care by like other parts of our system. So it just like in general like simplifies the process by a lot for a lot of new users. And I think in general people are like very excited to actually build products on blockchains that have like less gas fees than Ethereum, for example, and still be able to like interact with the Ethereum dApps. I think that is like one of the limitations for like building on other chains like Polygon and stuff. It just like once you actually build your dApp on like a different blockchain other than Ethereum, you are just like logged into that ecosystem, and you cannot actually access Ethereum ecosystem as deeply as if you would actually be able to do if you are actually deployed onto Ethereum. But with Ren L1, we believe that the barrier is like far lower, where like you can actually still access like Ethereum ecosystem like really well from Ren. So it just like gets everyone excited we talk to. And I think like with right incentives like together with this, like I think we can actually build like a good like developer ecosystem to the best of our knowledge, at least.
Thank you.
Maurice?
Any other questions?
So yeah, another one, just a bit technical. So let's say if Ren L1 is successful, I guess that will have similar scalability issues as every other L1 chain. So what you're thinking about that, and would it possibly make sense to directly go to a L2 kind of implementation from the start?
So, I mean, if you actually think about it, like Ren actually even today acts as an L2 system, whereas like we have our dark DNR on Ethereum, right? So our like actual validator selection logic, unlike the dark node selection logic and dark node registry, actually all of it actually sits on Ethereum. So Ethereum actually provides security for our system at a level, and so in that way you can actually consider our system as an L2. And usually L2s do not directly mean scalability. People actually almost trade off decentralization for scalability like 99% of the time. You can just like see how many nodes all these other L2 chains have like at this point. For example, Binance Smart Chain has 21, Polygon has 100, and like so on. And we like Ren has almost like 2000 nodes at this point, right? So I think when we launch, we would be like one of the most decentralized chains. And we will just like make sure that we are like as scalable as possible, but we definitely do not want to sacrifice like decentralization for scalability, because then we would almost be literally building just like EVM on EC2 instances, where like you're not getting the important thing about blockchain is decentralization, right? Not like scale to that degree, and we just have to like invent like cool ways of building products that do not need as many transactions on chain as possible. And that is the direction we would be like focusing more on, where we will actually have this like L2 as like the most decentralized and most and like really secure blockchain on which like people can actually build products, and we'll just like make sure that we create enough like development patterns and design patterns to help people build applications that take like less resources, so that we can actually build like a lot of applications on top of our system, and do not like get into the same traps that like other blockchains are falling into.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Are we ready to move on then? I can do the next question. Wick was asking how long and to what extent will Alameda support us with liquidity and for future assets as well. So the answer is we have sort of a soft. Alameda has soft committed to providing liquidity for projects that are incubated by Ren Labs. So we will continue to foster this relationship to make sure that we can get this support from Alameda on any developments we do. And we will also inform the community properly about this and transparently as best as we can. So this also includes, like host-to-host liquidity and stuff. We're still in planning stages, and we need to have proper UIs to sort of allow users to bridge in one place and swap in one place, so they don't have to bridge on RenBridge and then go over to Curve to do the swap, because that's a big user experience hurdle. So we just want to make sure that we have those things in place before we sort of really start working on liquidity for host-to-host assets. Sisters, do you have anything you want to add here?
I think that covers it really well. So I think one of the things we need to make sure that is that we have like user-facing applications that users can use even if there is like liquidity. And once there are like once there are applications that have like very good interface that like let's say user very easily bridge in, trade, and just like withdraw, or like bridge in, lend and withdraw, or like so on. I think Alameda would be like more passionate about adding liquidity, because they would be able to like make incentives and like fees and rewards as well, on top of helping us like scale liquidity in our systems. So I think one of the things that they are looking for is just like more applications that use Ren assets in a native way.
Do we have any questions on that? Otherwise, we can move on to question 4 by Katab, who asked how long and to what extent will Alameda support us with staffing and hiring for the Ren Labs team, considering that we're expected to scale with a more ambitious roadmap. This is sort of similar to the previous question, but also to answer that even more. So Ren Labs was incorporated late last year as a development studio to build applications on top of the Ren core infrastructure. But Alameda doesn't sort of own or control Ren Labs. What it does, on the other hand, is it owns Ren and other like Ren ecosystem assets, as well as they pay for development and maintenance of the Ren chain by through outsourcing that work to Ren Labs. So that's how that sort of relationship works. So they are incentivized to make sure that the Ren ecosystem grows, while Ren Labs handles that development and maintenance for them. So that's how they pay us salaries, basically. Any questions on that? Okay, if there isn't, we'll move ahead to question 5 by S rank. There's a lot of questions here, so I'll read one of them at a time and the answer one at a time. So will there be a white paper on the new Ren chain? Yes, there will be a white paper released in Q3 this year. And with that, a significant portion of it will be of the code base will be open source as well. Question 2: how long will it take to develop this new chain? What's the sort of roadmap? And the answer to that is the initial version will likely come out sometimes in Q4 this year. And we'll add a roadmap when we release the white paper. And then the other questions, they are addressed in previous answers. So yeah, Alameda Funding, you can check the community call answers for that, for reference. Yeah, Sushraf, do you want to add anything about the white paper or what's the expected sort of timeline for things?
I think we, again, as I said before, like we started like working on the white paper, and I think we would most likely publish it Q3. And yeah, we are also like experimenting with like almost a very rudimentary or like a early version of like Ren L1 as well. We are just like playing around with it. Would love to almost just like make it like a public thing so that other people can actually participate in this like network as well. But yeah, it is like in a very rudimentary stage at this point. But yeah, that's it. And I think someone has like questions. I saw like 2 people raise hands.
Yes. S Frank, you're invited and free to ask away.
You're
still
muted.
Yeah, you're muted. If you're having mic troubles, you could also just write the question either to me directly or in the community call questions thread, and I can read it out aloud. Unless you're able to fix your mic. Yes. Yeah. He's writing out the questions now, so I'll read it in a second.
Mm-hmm.
I think you can answer that as well as Frank. I mean, Sushraf. Yeah, if Alameda owns the IP, what's stopping them from sharing the technology with other projects?
So currently, I mean, from our discussions we had, like they promised that they would actually set up like a Swiss association or like a foundation kind of system and transfer the IP to it so that it can be used as like a public good for like Ren and like nothing else. So currently that's the promise they made, because from a legal standpoint, right, like since they actually acquired the Ren entity itself, the IP sits in that entity and it actually belongs to Alameda. And like during our conversations, they promised that they would not be giving this like IP to anyone else and would be putting it into like a foundation that can actually be controlled by the DAO and stuff. So for now, it is just like a soft agreement. But yeah, hopefully we'll just like set up the association or like some entity which can be controlled by the DAO and transfer the IP there.
He asked another follow-up to that. I mean, yeah, I'm not able to answer legal questions. So promise is not a legal obligation, he's asking.
Yeah, so but like at this point, right, like we cannot get them to transfer this IP to any entity that would actually make sense. And yeah, like one of the things that we mentioned in like one of our like recent RFCs is to set up this foundation to which it can be transferred to. Yeah, currently I think like a lot of these things, like even like the liquidity provision, are more on like a promise basis than any exact agreements. So that's like the current state of things. Hopefully they change.
Yeah. Okay, so there's some other questions, but let's move ahead to the questions.
One else raised their hand. I think Zonu
Oh, yeah.
or someone.
Yeah, I'll invite Sonu.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, yeah.
Hi, I was just curious, since that clarified the relationship between you and Alameda. When you guys do timeframes with them, are they like bossy about it? Do they get you to stick to those timeframes? Are they pretty loose with how you guys, because it reads like you guys are basically the contractors building the code and they're the project managers type of thing.
Yeah, so they're decently loose with like deadlines and stuff. We have just like long-term mandates on like we need to like reach decentralization within like I think 12 months from now. I think like it was like 2 years from the time Alameda acquired Ren and stuff. I think yeah, they give us like long-term mandates on just like getting us to like do major things on specific time. I think currently the only mandate is like decentralization and maintenance going forward. So they actually let us just like split it into like smaller tasks and manage them ourselves. Yeah, they just like give us like long-term mandates.
Awesome. That made question 4 super clear. Thanks.
Thank you.
Okay, so for those asking questions in that channel, we'll wait for those at the end. You can maybe ask them out loud as well, so it'll go quicker. But we'll move through the questions that's sort of been posted in the community call answers thread. So the next question is by SH4KK4. Is there any concrete plan to increase transparency and communications with community? Because there's some anger in the chat based on lack of transparency. Is there? Yeah, and the answer is yes, definitely. We'll try. So this AMA is the first sort of, step to be more transparent on that, and we make improvements as best as we can to, make communications better, have things more transparent, to be able to answer questions earlier. All of that. So there's no reason not to do it, basically.
Just adding on top of it, I think we would also love to get more feedback on what are the exact things you guys want to know. Just because like we don't want to like either go the other extreme and just like overload you guys on information. If you guys like want to like for example like learn about like development cycles or like project management side of things, or like high level like white papers and stuff, or anything in more specific, like for example maybe like a like this AMA calls like once every month or something like that. Just like if you guys have like things in mind on like what actually improves transparency by a lot, we would love to know that as well, and we will try to make sure that we can incorporate as many of those into our communication channels so that we get better at it. We understand that we have been like really bad at communication and we really want to improve. So would love your like feedback and yeah, I want to get better at this.
I just want to put out a fast comment on that. Perhaps community members can choose their own dosage of information, and it would be helpful to have, if someone wants to dive extremely deep into the Ren development, it would be helpful if we had development cycles, we had roadmaps, we had as much information as humanly possible, and
Yep.
we can decide for ourselves how much of it we want to digest, learn, etc.
Yeah, it sounds interesting. I think we could start with yeah, just like as we slowly open source our code more and more, we can also open source our project management tools as well, like Trello and stuff that we use. And yeah, just like any other things that we use to internally track progress and like internally like set goals and milestones. We can yeah, just like start making them public as well, so that people who want to dive deeper actually have access to all these things.
Since I already started talking, I want to ask a related question. I think a related question. What kind of open source license are we going to have? I know there are open source licenses that do not permit commercial usage. Is that something that we are aiming to have?
So I think in starting we would like start with a similar license to what like Uniswap v3 uses at this point. And as time goes, like in 6 to 12 months, like we can together as a community decide on whether we want to like make it more loose, or yeah, just like make it more tight. So I think Uniswap v3 license is like a good place to start. So most likely we'll be like open sourcing all our code under that license, at least like the more interesting and like more complex code, and like all our helper libraries like P2P libraries and all this like external stuff would be under like a MIT license. More like interesting pieces of our code base would be released under Uniswap v3 like license. And yeah, we would like we can reassess like afterwards.
So correct me if I'm wrong, but for those who don't know, Uniswap v3 license does not allow commercial usage, right?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, we want to like almost like make sure that we have, so I mean, having that license is very important because we can actually choose to not go after some people. So if people want to like use it in like some commercial usage and stuff, they can come to us and like ask us for permission, like for example the Ren Foundation or like the entity, and we can give them like a written agreement saying that sure you can actually use it, or like I mean we might actually give the license off if they actually contribute like some funds to the association or something like that, to make sure that these funds are used to like further development and things like that. So having a harder license is always like good, so that we can actually like worst case scenario, if like someone is like literally like trying to clone Ren VM and just like redeploy it like somewhere else, we will be able to like fight them. And if there are like other like interesting use cases that actually add more value to the whole space, we can choose not to go after them. So yeah, just like it is better to just like be strict at license level and be loose on the enforcement side of things.
All right, let's move on to the next question. This one was asked by Free Time. When will login with FTX integration be built? So the answer to this is it's not on the current list of priorities. I mean, we have pretty big things in development, and decentralization is the biggest focus at the moment, as well as sort of layer one development. But this can be done, but it will also be up to the FTX team and what their priorities are at the moment. Yeah. So, is there anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think the cooler side of things would actually be if like FTX, Binance, or like one of allow merge directly into Ren in a way. Like, so if you have like BTC on these exchanges, they can just like let them convert it directly into Ren BTC, and that side of things would be like way cooler than just like FTX login. I mean, like from a personal point of view, but I think yeah. So we would be trying to get those side of things as well. I think someone has a question, so I can answer that.
Yes, invite. You should be able to join free time.
You've got to click the button to join the stage.
Here we
Oh,
go.
sorry. Hi, guys. You can hear me?
Yes.
Yep.
Back when the AMA was created with Alameda, there were contracts made that things that were mentioned there, like the FTX bridge, has to be kept and also will surely come someday. Or is it possible that the FTX bridge will not be built at all?
Currently, it is like not being built by us at least. I think they might be like working on it on their side of things. But one of the things they were like very interested in and like curious about was like this like Ren L1, and if they can actually integrate the FTX exchange into to like Ren L1 in a way where like you can actually deposit and withdraw assets like from FTX to Ren L1, which would almost like if like Ren L1 actually becomes popular, we would not need bridges anymore. So I think they were like more interested in that side of things. Yeah, I don't think like Ren FTX bridge is being actively worked on at this point in time.
Okay, thanks.
Always.
And let's move on to the next one. A question by Jamlog. When will Ren be fully open sourced? And who owns the Ren IP? So we talked about Alameda owning that, and they're committed to moving that to a Swiss association, the public goods structure. Regarding the open source thing, so is this tied to the Q3 roadmap, Susrif, or is this also some additional stuff? Will
So
open source?
we will. I think like we have like some of our repositories like open source, and we would open source majority of our code base by end of Q3. Yeah, just like it would be like linked to the white paper as well, and by the time white paper is launched, like most of the code should be open source.
Good. Any questions on this? Okay, let's move on to the ninth question by Chico Bermuda. What's the latest plan to scale TVL? Are we ruling out TEEs or not? The question we have for that is that so the layer one development would add additional utility to Ren tokens. It would increase the cost to attack Ren, which is a good thing. So we could have more TVL. And then we've done research and development on a new way of sharding that will improve safety parameters of Ren by a lot, which is another great feature to have. So that will increase safe level of TVL. And this will be sort of explained in the Ren 2.0 white paper. Some additional context from your side, Susrif?
Yep, I think if I have to provide like a bit more context on like the T side of things, in general, T's like when we actually like started looking into them was always like a long shot, because we would have to almost like redesign our whole dark node registry and a lot of our like system for T's, and we actually went ahead and like converted like a decent pieces of our code to actually work with T's. and like in a trusted execution environment. Then we started like testing it on different cloud providers like GCP, AWS, and all these guys. And yeah, as I was like mentioning in the tech chat back then, like whenever like a restart happens, the keys are like changed. So that is not good for us. Like we cannot have like the keys and like the storage almost like change whenever like we restart. But that is like a fundamental limitation in using keys, because they have to keep the storage inside a secure chip. And whenever you restart your system, you might be like, your code might be deployed to a completely different TE security chip. So all the storage that is on your like previous thing cannot be even like transferred out again, like a feature of T. So that is like causing like the like major amount of problems for us, like to actually use T's in our system. And we have been just like digging more into it, and like found out that like even T's, like even if we do everything right, I think there are like still some edge cases where like the system can become as vulnerable as like a system that is completely deployed on normal servers. So we actually like stopped doing like active research on it like for a while, until like things changed in the T space. And like yeah, once like things change, or like once like cloud providers like create like better services to actually do this like migrations, or a easier way to actually use and deploy on T's, we could like consider it again. But at this point, it does not look like something we can actually add to our system and see like big benefits out of it. And yeah, on like the other side, like on how we can actually increase like the TVL in our system, there are almost like yeah, a few directions that we are looking into to actually improve the amount that can be safely stored in Ren VM. As mentioned, one of it is like if we can actually make Ren L1, then the fees that people would actually pay for transactions that happen on Ren L1 would actually be paid in Ren, or like would be paid in a different asset, but it would be converted to Ren and stuff. So like there would be like more utility to the Ren token itself, which would hopefully like increase the price and increase the cost of attack on our system. The second side was like we actually found out like a new and like really cool way of like doing sharding. This is like doing sharding with EDDSA keys and stuff. So which is really interesting, and we could actually at least from our like initial like models, we can actually push the security of our system from 33% that we have today to almost like 45%, which is almost like close to like 51% that Ethereum, Bitcoin, and all these other blockchains have. So it is like a very big jump. So we are like very keen about it, and like we are exploring that angle to make sure that if it is like completely bulletproof, so that we can actually use such a system. So like if a new person wants to like attack the system, they have to almost buy double the number of nodes. For example, if there are 2000 nodes today, and like if a new person wants to attack the system, they have to almost acquire 2000 more nodes to attack our system, which becomes like very hard and very expensive very quickly. And there is like a third angle we are also looking at, where we are thinking that we should actually since if we go ahead with something like Ren L1, the amount of bridging might decrease, because a lot of people might deposit assets into Ren L1 and just use it on Ren L1. So one of the ideas was that instead of like charging them based on bridging, we would actually charge them based on TVL, and it is built into the smart contracts, and we'll just like make it very easy for new developers to actually integrate into their systems, so that the development experience does not deteriorate a lot, and we still are able to actually generate fees from all the TVL that is sitting on our system. This is actually like very interesting and very advantageous, because the more TVL we have in the system, the more fees we generate, and the more fees we generate, the more revenue comes to the dark nodes, and there would be like more demand for Ren. So like and if like people like more people run dark nodes and like there is like more Ren that is bonded, now there is like more room for like TVL again, and it is like a very good positive reinforcement cycle in a way where more TVL means like more value to Ren, and like more value to Ren means there is like more TVL that can be locked in our system. So we believe that these three things together can actually almost remove the limit of TVL from our system. And yeah, we are like very hopeful about these three models like working out. So yeah, we are like on like final levels of like testing and like testing these models. So once we actually finally fully tested, like we will actually release a blog post explaining the whole process on like how we are increasing the amount of TVL that can be safely locked in our system.
Nice. Any follow-up questions to that?
Is this new sharding method part? Do you think it will be part of the white paper, or it's a Q4 kind of thing?
So sharding would actually give you like a brief on like how we are doing sharding soon in a blog post, and then it would be all like explained in the white paper which will come out in Q3, and it would actually be like fully built and fully integrated into Ren in Q4 is our goal. And yeah.
Got it.
One question from the community. Suthuruth, can we help you untie your shoes today?
Yeah, I'll send them through like after this call.
No, but thank you all. This is very helpful.
Can I actually turn on video somehow? I'll just like show them off. No, right? I don't think so.
I think you can turn on video.
Okay.
Oh.
Can't see. Let me know if you guys know how to like turn on video.
Yeah, we'll see if someone can tips us how to do that.
Yeah.
So let's move to the last question of those we have answered. Then we can do any extra questions. How? So if Ren layer 1 isn't deployed yet, how will this work for catalog? And for any other apps that will be built in the coming coming quarters? Does this have to do anything with compliance or not?
So yeah, I mean, catalog would be deployed to Ren L1 as soon as it is ready, and as soon as like everyone is happy that like with the direction, it will definitely be deployed onto Ren L1. Currently, we actually deployed it to a very, as I said, like a very rudimentary version of Ren L1 that we are just like playing internally with, and we actually deployed like the mainnet thing to it, and like are getting other people to actually test it out and try it out. Looks like it is working well. So ideally we can actually get to a stage where we can actually launch Ren L1 and put catalog on top of it. So yeah, I mean, Ren L1, once like Ren L1 is done, like we will migrate everything that exists on Ren right now and move it over to like Ren L1. So people should be able to do everything they are able to do today with Ren VM with like the new Ren L1 as well. So it's like something that extends what we have today, not something that replaces it.
Yeah, do we have any questions on that? Okay, otherwise we can sort of move on to general follow-up questions as well as new questions. I think we can go on for maybe 20 minutes or something before everyone taps out. I know there's some questions in the text channel, but have anyone want to ask something now in voice you can go ahead. Yes, Mag, I'll invite you.
Hi, thank you, Max. Yeah, so my question, maybe I missed your answer, Truth. Is in regards of the inflation model that you have envisioned for this new change. So it is mentioned in the RFC that the idea is to decentralize the funding. So in a way that we are promoting developers to come and build. And my question is to build in which change specifically? Because if we are changing the model now, the only place where they can build would be RenVM. So is the idea for them to build in RenVM, or is the idea for them to build in the new Ren L1? So whether is this inflation thought to be applied at that time or at this time? That part is not clear to me.
Yeah, so that is actually still open, like to conversation and what we all like strongly feel about. So the idea of like the foundation is kind of like more general, and I would say if the DAO votes to, let's say, incentivize like a curve pool on Ethereum, for example, like more immediately, we can definitely do something like that. But and if you want to like fund like L1 and like L1 development slash building more products on top of L1, or like incentivizing people to come build on top of L1, that is definitely doable as well. So from from a general point, I would always think that how can we use like this Ren in such a way that like every one Ren spent gets us like more Ren back, and like more value back to our like ecosystem, and just like focusing and like spending our money on the most bang for buck proposals, instead of like funding proposals that do not have like long-term value, and like more like short-term site. So yeah, I think like spending money on things like R&D projects and like infrastructure projects that make like developers like lives easy, so that they can come work on our project, and almost like incentivizing projects on top of like RenVM chain, so that like like we can actually get like a lot more TVL, so like a lot more fees to dark nodes, and a lot more utility to the Ren token would be ideal. But there is no strict framework on like how we would want to like spend it. That is something we would want to like come up together, and just like decide on what are the types of projects we want to fund, and what are the types of projects we do not want to fund, and like we want like someone else to fund, or like so on and so forth. So this foundation and like inflation plan is mainly to make sure that there is like money somewhere that can be deployed to actually accelerate the growth of our protocol.
All right. Yeah. Thank you for your answer. I would like to expand a little bit more because, or at least provide feedback. So I think what I'm seeing is that timing of applying these changes is really vital for the project, because it has different impacts, right? Like if we are changing in a way the tokenomics because we are introducing inflation, that changes the dynamic as we know it right now. So if we are introducing inflation now and we are sort of incentivizing developers to develop in RenVM, then what I'm seeing it from a practical view that, well, if I am a developer and I'm being incentivized to develop in RenVM, what's going to happen with my app, right? When this new change comes along, am I going to be able to move it to this change? They are sort of like, it could be hesitation if that path is not really clear. But then if we just say, as a community, say, oh, well, let's apply the inflation for developers to develop in the new Ren change, well, then we maintain the status quo as we have it now. And then at the moment that the new change comes along, then yeah, we have the incentive to move into this new period of Ren. But once we have that certainty, that's how that change is gonna work. So that's why that's where I'm coming from the perspective of, in a practical way, what is the best timing. And I understand what you're saying, that this is a decision that we all have to take. But I just want to give my point of view on that, and see what would be. I mean, if it contributes a little bit with the way you are designing this new chain. It's not just a chain; it's a whole ecosystem, right?
Yep. So most of the projects that are actually building on top of Ren today, we will definitely guarantee that their projects would definitely work even with the new chain that we would deploy. Like everything would be like backwards compatible, and that is something we take really care of, so that like people who are actually spending like a lot of time and energy into building something on top of Ren do not actually are not left out. So, I mean, I think like once the white paper is out, people would have like more information on how this like new Run L1 ecosystem would work, and I think it would give them like a better idea on how they want to like go about like building things and go about creating like proposals from Run Association to actually get funds to build more cool things in our ecosystem. And I think like we would have to like release the white paper so that people get like definitely more transparency and like more clarity on like what is going to happen, and like more certainty in things. So we are like trying our best to get this white paper done soon, and just like publishing it so that people have that certainty before they take the jump.
Thank you.
I can't pass up this opportunity because you've piqued my curiosity when you said all projects that are building on Ren. Can you disclose maybe how many projects are building on Ren? If there are more than Catalog and something else?
I think you guys might know like a decent number of them. I think you guys know about Zero DAOs, like Zero DAO guys, you know about Varonex and you know about Catalog. I think there are like a few projects that do not even have names yet. These are like projects that people are just like working on and want to like almost integrate into like our almost like launch it with Ren L1 in a way. One of these ideas is the one I briefly mentioned, this concept of lending aggregation, on how you can actually let's say deposit funds onto this like RenVM contract, and they would just like lend it out on some of the whitelisted lending contracts on different blockchains. So in a way you can think about it as like a cross-chain Wi-Fi and stuff like that. Yan Finance. There are like a few other projects that are like not few. There is like one other project that is like working on trying to build a what do you call it, like yield farming aggregator, uh, and that's like really interesting. And I think even I don't know if Chico is here or not. Chico is also working on something interesting, and we are just like exploring if we can actually leverage like the new protocol design of like RenVM to actually have it be part of like RenVM protocol itself. So yeah, few projects.
So that's at least 5 or 6 projects. Hype.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
If free time, you can ask a question.
Question is, could it be possible in the future to use Ren to bring assets onto a consortium and private blockchains such as Hyperledger? I think in this way, companies could use USDC, for example, to process payments inside their own network with their own business logic, and no third party is needed for bill payments. So I think it's a very good chance for them.
So actually, so private networks are like something we have been exploring, and it is like technically possible for sure. We just have to like figure out what are the private blockchains that we want to integrate that would bring us like the most amount of value. Otherwise, and like choose the first private chain properly, so that like once we actually integrate it, we see like a decent amount of volume pickup, and like Ren actually getting like a decent amount of fees. Because yeah, integrating to a private chains are like a lot of like development, so we want to make sure that the amount of time that is spent from developers is like worth it, and it is adding like good value to our system. So technically it is possible, but we have to like just like vote it in and say that this is something we should explore. And yeah, if enough of dark nodes and enough of the community is excited about it, I think we could definitely explore that.
Oh, great, thanks.
I invited you, S rank.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, last.
Okay, sorry about that before. My question is, if the inflation model isn't accepted, what does the team plan to do?
I think it would be more. I think we would still continue the decentralization side of things that like Alameda asked us to do. So we will finish like decentralization before the end of the year, and we would not be like so focused on Ren L1 and all these like new things, because they are definitely almost like very incentive hungry, because we not want to like launch in L1 without like any incentives. Any new chain needs incentives for like attracting the initial cohort of talent onto the system. So if we do not have a chance of like doing this inflation and having this like set of resources that we can just like reward them for being the first movers and using our system and creating examples for other people to come and build, I think it would be like very hard to actually go ahead with the L1 plan. But I think the other things like general decentralization of like Ren protocol and just like finishing it would not be affected by the inflation decision. They are like two different things. Yeah, so I think that's the direction we would like end up going in.
And my second question on that is, has work on the L1 already started, or is it still from zero?
So there is like some we have started some work on it, but it again it is like very preliminary, just for us to like almost test out how catalog would actually work on Ren L1, and how if like Ren L1 actually makes sense kind of testing. And yeah, so we built like minimal stuff to actually prove that like Ren L1 is actually very cool, and I think it would be like worth it. Again, like from our perspective again, I think yeah, so we built those small things, like we built like the EVM adapter, which would actually let us deploy EVM smart contracts and almost like consider like the balances inside RenVM as ERC20 balances, instead of like what they are today, which is like it's almost like a custom program like written in Go in a way. So there is like some work that we have started, and yeah, like but there is still like a lot more to do before it is like fully fleshed out and we can actually put it out.
Talking about the incentive to build on Ren L1, do you have any plan to expose SMPC features to Ren smart contracts?
So I think initially at least we would be like more focused on just like bridging kind of features and like cross-chain features than SMPC features themselves, at least in the starting few months, because I think if we try to like target too many people, or like just like too broad of a market, I think we would not be able to like attract the talent that we want to attract. So ideally, I think we would actually be focused on incentivizing cross-chain native dApps in the starting. So that would be the focus. I would say like for the first like I would say like 6 to 12 months since after like L1 launch. And once we do that, then we'll just like explore what other developers want to build on top of Ren, and if SMPC is like one of the top things, then we would actually make SMPC more usable. Just like make the libraries are already there, and can be used right now, but like we'll actually make them more structured and like build more dev tools around it so that it is even easier for new people to deploy cool SMPC apps on Run.
Yeah, that would be awesome. I've seen a lot of teams who are really looking for a chain that supports MPC for imperfect information games. And yeah, it looks like Ren could be actually one of the first chain to have proper primitives for that.
Yep.
Yeah, Janky, you can ask away.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Hi. Thank you for
Hi.
the answers so far. I just wanted to know where we stand right now in our current state. What kind of regulatory compliance hurdles could we be facing? And if we switch to the L1, are any of those hurdles eliminated? And if so, which ones?
So I think I mean like some of the hurdles like that I think like almost like a lot of dApps and like a lot of protocols in this system currently face is just like the scale of decentralization. I think the regulators are like almost like getting advanced like day after day like and trying to find out systems that are not truly decentralized and have like enough validators and stuff and like trying to enforce compliance and like enforce like KYC at like protocol levels and like at dApp levels. So I think not the L1, but like even if we can actually reach decentralization and have like a decentralized governance model to govern the whole protocol, I think we should be in a good place as a project. I think like those two things would actually really mean that there are like a lot of people running like a lot of things and this system is like fully decentralized because both the governance side and like the technology, both of them are decentralized. So I think that is like definitely important for us to achieve. But like Ren L1 would just like take it forward. Like I mean, get it just like it is like a Ren L1 is more of a growth strategy and decentralization plus Ren Foundation is more like just like improving the safety and like the principles of our existing system.
I see. Thank you.
Please.
You can go ahead and stand source.
Hey guys, so in full disclosure, I got on the call a little bit late, so apologies if this is but I wanted to know if we're moving past Grayport, are you guys concerned about the comparatively low cost of building a 30 or even 45% ownership of dark nodes at current prices?
Definitely concerned about it, but we think I mean like even if you actually own like 45% of nodes, it's not like completely straightforward on how you would be able to like actually compromise the system. I think there are like still things that you would have to do. For example, you would have to like still build this almost like a again, right, I'm not saying this as like any compromise or like anything, but like you would still need like a dev team that can actually build you the nodes and like the SMPC primitives that would actually let you compromise the system. So it's not like straightforward as like you get like 45% of Ren and you would actually just break the system. It is like more intensive than that. And one of the things again, like completely personal opinion on like does not have like anyone else on our team's opinion in it. I think RenVM is like in a very interesting stage where I think if you actually have enough funds to break Ren and actually like steal funds, you have to like have funds. You need like a good enough development team that actually reverse engineers like some of these SMPC primitives and like builds new primitives. I think it is like more profitable for someone like that to build their own project than actually trying to compromise our system in a way. So I think in a way I'm like okay with it, but I think I definitely want to like improve like the value of Ren, and just like so that like the cost of acquisition of Ren becomes like harder and harder. But like all bear markets always like create these challenges for systems like ours, where the cost of attack becomes like lower. um, but yeah, I mean, definitely concerned, but yeah, trying to add like few things like as I said, like the three things that I mentioned before, improving safety to 45%, like making fees based on TVL, and just this like new sharding model. I think three of them together hopefully would actually improve our security moving forward.
All right, thanks, Ruth.
No worries.
You can go ahead, Seeking.
Hi, all. Can you hear me? Hello?
Yep. Can hear you.
Hi, Arvi. Hi, Max. Hi, Ruth. Thank you very much for having this. Really appreciate it. I have one question, and this is more regarding expanding on the Ren Foundation pathway. I'm incredibly bullish and hopeful for that path. I think that's very exciting to explore and to formalize. And I had a little bit of a question as far as the funding. Is the setting up of the Ren Foundation something expected to be led and funded by Ren DAO, Ren Labs, or would it be from Alameda? Where would the funding and the logistical leadership come from, or what is the expectation at least when it comes to setting that up? I know it will require close coordination with Ren DAO, but as far as the funding and the leadership, I would love to get maybe a little more deeper context on what you guys see that moving forward. Thank you.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. So currently we are actually talking to some of these Swiss legal firms on this like structure. So currently, and like one of the things that they actually mentioned was like this Ren association, Swiss association, which is like very flexible, and and we feel like we can actually make the governance same as Ren DAO governance, so that like we can actually like merge these things like very closely. But so we want to like make sure that the decisions that are like made by the Ren association are as close to like decisions made by Ren DAO as possible from almost a legal standpoint and like a legally abiding standpoint. So currently, like Alameda would actually be setting up the association and actually transferring the IP and like doing like the initial setup and just like leaving it there. And we want the leadership to actually come from the Ren DAO, like mostly, and nowhere else. So that like the decisions can be made by Ren DAO in the system, but like the logistics of it are like still like tricky, which is what like we are trying to figure out right now, on if there is like some way where we can actually literally say that any decision that is actually made by Ren DAO on Ethereum is abiding for this like association to do. For example, that would be the ideal case scenario, and the Ren association can actually then just like vote on like funding whatever projects it thinks is like interesting for like Ren from a long-term perspective. So that's like the ideal goal that we are like going after, but we have to like see like what are the limitations of our current legal system to exactly find out what we can and cannot do.
Wonderful. Thank you for the context. Much appreciated. And I've spoken with other DNOs, and overall there's definitely strong interest on collaborating and seeing how we can help us right now. So we look forward to further information, and we're, to get this process started. Thank you guys for the feedback. Appreciate that.
Awesome.
Thank you, Seeking. I can do a follow-up question that I've seen in the text channel. So would the Swiss association be funded only by inflation, or would Alameda also help out fund that, or what's sort of the strategy around that?
I think there are no like full commitments from like Alameda side of things. I think they would like fund the initial minimum amount that is required to actually start the foundation. But I think it would like most likely be funded by like the Ren inflation or any other grants that are given by anyone else in the space. Like for example, if we are like integrating with something like Dogecoin or Dash or something, they might give us like a grant for actually bringing their token into the DeFi space and things like that. So hopefully we get some grants from some of these other like blockchains, like some of these like 2019 blockchains in a way, to actually fund active development on Ren Labs. Sorry, not on Ren. Then yeah, I mean I think yeah, just like these grants and inflation would mostly be it.
Yep. And another similar question. So, how for a Swiss association, when it spends any, it issues a grant or pays out a grant, is all of this sort of public? How do Swiss association do you have any context on that?
Yeah, it's fully transparent. So anything that a Swiss association does needs to be like publicly and disclosed. So like we are actually choosing Swiss association compared to like a lot of other things, just for the the restrictions on or like the transparency that it actually requires, like compared to a lot of other foundations that do not need as much like transparency. I think this like Swiss association makes sure that like most of the things that we spend money on are like things that like this Swiss association does are like fully transparent, and anyone can actually become like a member of it, and I think members might get like more information as well. Again, like still talking to some of these like legal firms, so do not have like full data on that, but like from all that we actually gathered, we found out that like Swiss foundations are like almost like very widely regarded for their transparency and like their like cleanness. So yeah, we wanted to like pick an association that actually had those principles, so we are going with it.
Yeah, nice. I think most of the questions are answers. We can go for 5 more minutes. I'm seeing one question that hasn't been talked about yet. So is the layer 1 development, how does this relate to sort of the subnet idea versus having one general chain? Is the subnet idea that anyone could spin up like a chain on Ren, is that still viable?
So it is, again, I think the subnet model just like gives us the flexibility. It does not mean that we have to build like more chains and like have to like complicate the system like any further. It just like lets us easily add more chains in the future if we so choose to. So that's the main reason we wanted like the subnet model. It's just like for the flexibility that model would actually give us. I mean, like from my perspective, I think we would have like completely decentralized Ren VM and like this like EVM layer that lets anyone like build smart contracts be the main chains or like main system for like a decent time to come. But if there are like new things that like people can think of and design that would actually leverage, let's say, core level SMPC or some like cross-chain primitives and like want to do something interesting, or like for example if someone wants to build like a Hyperledger based subnet as like a completely private network, but that actually gets access to like RenVM and a lot of RenVM features through it, they would be able to like spin up like a subnet and we would be able to easily add it. And the amount of development that we need for like subnet and not subnet is not that different, because it is like almost like a very simple thing that we add to our smart contract that just says that there exists like more than one subnet, and like and the dark nodes that are running these subnets will get punished if they are like doing wrong things. and there are like multiple subnets they can actually misbehave on. So yeah, like the slashing logic is the only thing that actually really changes. Everything else like stays the same. And we in the starting, since like we'll only have like EVM in our system, we would not be doing like a lot of work on the inter subnet communication side of things. We'll only do it like once there are like actively more subnets that are building on top of our system, then we'll come up with standards to do those things. So yeah, like I think subnet concept is more a just like a design decision that we have to like make today to make our lives easy like tomorrow. If we want flexibility, we have the flexibility. And yeah, if like, so yeah, that's the main reason that exists and nothing else.
Great. I think that that wraps it up, folks. We've been on for 90 minutes.
Can I get a fast question? One last question. More current, about current state of affairs. When are liquidity pools coming for host to host, and what is the state of them?
Yeah, so we are actually exploring like liquidity pools on that side of things. Like, I mean, it's just like very iffy, just because we know that it would be like far more efficient to actually get these liquidity pools on something like Catalog than on like a lot of different chains. So we have been like trying to balance those two out and seeing that like how can we actually incentivize pools on other chains and still get like get decent amount of value out of it, because since like we are trying to like launch Catalog like soon. Again, like really bad word to actually say, sadly. But yeah, I mean, like if we can actually concentrate like incentives on like liquidity pools inside Ren, I think it would be like far more ideal for like people to actually create this very cool experiences. We are currently kind of exploring like other projects that actually integrate Ren in their like product UI itself, so that we can just like incentivize those guys to actually have like more liquidity there and like get users more liquidity so that they can trade and stuff. But yeah, I think it is like still something that we have been thinking about on like how to actually prioritize it and how to like just like distinguish it from like focusing on Catalog liquidity at this point.
All right. If people have any other questions, they can post it in the text channel so we can take care of them sort of asynchronously later. I think people need some rest now from so much talking. We'll upload the call as well. And thank you, RV, for helping making a backup recording, and thank you for helping organize the call itself. And thank you, community members, for being here and listening and asking questions and being active. We hope that the summer and the rest of the year will be very bullish in terms of development for the Ren and the Ren ecosystem. So regardless of what the market is doing, I think it's fairly bullish on the development side and community building side and DAO side and stuff. So we're very excited, at least, of the future, and we hope that you are as well. So yeah, thank you for being here. And thank you, Susrif, for taking your precious time and giving so good answers to the questions that we've had. Anything else?
Yeah. Thanks. Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you, guys. We'll see you in the text channels.
Yeah.
Bye-bye.
Bye, guys.
Thank you all. Thank you. Bye.